All right, so to answer this question of where is sine of theta is equal to 0, we need to go back to our unit circle and remember that on our unit circle it goes in alphabetical order. So CS, cosine comma sine. So our sine is given by our y coordinate. So we are trying to figure out where the y coordinate is equal to 0. So if you think about your unit circle, the y-coordinate is certainly not equal to 0 up here. It's going to be equal to 0 on the x-axis. So when we start off with an angle of 0, sine theta would be equal to 0 there. But it's not just equal to 0 here, it's also equal to 0 if we go a full 180 degrees. So if I add pi, I would get to pi over here, and we know from our unit circle discussion that this has an x-coordinate of -1, but a y-coordinate of 0. So my sine would also be equal to 0 there. Now, if I keep going around here, we are going to see that if I continue to add pi, so if I have pi plus pi, that would give us 2 pi. It would be equal to 0 there. If I add another pi, so 2 pi plus pi, that would give us 3 pi. And it would be equal to 0 over here at 3 pi. And if you think about it, sine of theta is going to be equal to 0 every time theta is equal to an integer multiple of pi. So we say plus or minus n pi. You don't really need the plus or minus, so just n pi, because n here is any integer value. So it could be negative, it could be positive, but it has to be one of our 0, 1, 2, 3, or -1, -2, -3. So those are the values for which sine of theta will be equal to 0. Now the question also asks, where is cosine of theta equal to 0? So cosine of theta is a little different because that's going to be where my x-coordinate is equal to 0, and my x-coordinate is equal to 0 starting at pi over 2. But it's not just equal to 0 at pi over 2, it's also equal to 0 when I add 180 degrees, so adding pi. And that would give us 3 pi over 2. And I could take 3 pi over 2 and I could add another pi, add another pi, add another pi, go around and around we go. And so we would say that cosine of theta is going to be equal to 0 if our theta is equal to pi over 2 plus any integer multiple of pi. So pi over 2 plus n pi. And again, n here is any integer value.